realise that when we go to organisations and others trust and implement ChatHealth, that actually it's a bit like rabbit in headlights moment for people. You know, we're saying, oh, come on, implement this new way of working and messaging with service users, which is scary enough in itself, because you're actually writing things and that puts fear in people. And also then we're saying, and here's an RSRT system that you have to learn. And as soon as people walk into the room, when we do training, me and Jimmy can identify who thinks they're a technophobe and who thinks that this is going to be all too much for them, because they generally don't speak to us. But actually, in reality, this was really closely developed with school nurses and other kind of nursing professionals. So actually, it is really straightforward, it is really simple, and it's not made to kind of make more work for people. And I always say, if people can use electronic records, they can use this fine. Okay. So on the website itself, we've got a few documents that are really kind of important and key for our nurses. So we've got a guidance document that they can look at, and basically following our training sessions, they have a walkthrough process in that guidance document of how to use the system, because again we realise that when you do training, people can only take in so much information. So we've backed it up with kind of a training document. And then we've also got our guidance, and that is where we've got in there that kind of talks through general messaging with service users and the kind of do's and don'ts, and things that we would say you definitely have to do this to make sure that the service is safe, etc. And also in there it's got a risk of harm pathway. There was a slide that Jimmy had earlier with it on, and that's, you know, in those situations, if we have to escalate anything with a safeguarding concern, that our nurses feel kind of that they're being supported. And that's part of my role, is about making sure the nurses are kind of equipped for the job, and that actually it's not just a go and get on with it and see how it works. Okay, so we've done lots of background into that really. Okay. Well, this is very much dependent on different organisations. ChatHealth can be set up exactly how you want it to work in your organisation. So in a lot of areas we use a triage model, and that seems to work really well. So messages come into a central part and then they're triaged. So if we talk about what we've done in Leicestershire specifically, we have a triage model where messages come in, and then a nurse will triage those, and maybe if they need a face-to-face contact or a longer episode of care, that will then get triaged down to team level. Okay, so it enables that kind of triage model, but then also that personal one-to-one with the allocated team school nurses. Okay, and it comes into kind of a bit of it looks like an email inbox really, and you can see the numbers that come in. And this is how the conversation will look. You've probably seen it on the screen as the girls are responding to it. And there's lots of different things in here. So, sorry, I'll just put this one, whoever started it with coffee and pastries. So there's lots of different things in here. So attributes, for example, is a way that we can tag conversations with themes, so that then we can go back to our commissioners and say, actually, we've had this many conversations about this different range of issues. Okay, so and then we can have those statistics from that. It's an open and transparent system, like I say. It's got lots of safety features, such as you get a bounce back out of hours. If they messaged in every 5 minutes, they would get a bounce back signposting them saying we're not there, and actually that then helps reduce the dependency, and they know we're not an emergency 24/7 service. Okay. And as a nurse, that feels really comfortable to me, that they get something out of hours and they know that that we're not there. Whereas if that came to my handset, there'd be no way that we could do that. Okay, so that sits quite comfortably with us. And definitely online safety is massive. We did a lot of work with CEOP during the kind of implementation phase of ChatHealth, and all our other projects we still work really closely with them. In partnership with them, and also we're looking at whether we can work with them to do some training in-house for our practitioners. We also, the feedback we have from people was actually, like you're saying, probably not on to the extent, but you know, if they get an itemised bill, then their dad could say, who's this number you've been messaging, etc. And so that really is the fuel behind us developing the app, because it'd be all password protected. They wouldn't have to rely on a text message. It wouldn't be itemised because they'd download the app and it'd be safe and secure behind that. So yeah, we're very much aware of kind of there's a ceiling of things that actually are appropriate to talk about via messaging, and we talk about that in our guidance as well. And actually, we need to think as practitioners, does this young personal service user need a face-to-face contact? And I think, you know, you've probably fed up of hearing about it because everybody said it, but we are not saying that this replaces face-to-face care, and we know that there is a ceiling. But if we can get a service user in, and this is my experience, if we can get a service user in that maybe wouldn't access anybody or any health advice or support, and then that leads to a face-to-face contact, which in my experience happens quite a lot, that it's kind of great to have that initial contact via messaging, because we just have to be kind of aware of when it needs to move on to that, I think. So we kind of moves on to Wendy's question a little bit as well about supervision and revalidation. So we have supervision sessions as you know, in normal practice, as we all do, but then specifically we get the triage nurses together kind of quarterly to have meetings and talk about any incidents that may have happened or any learning. And definitely that comes into revalidation, because I've put on sessions, for example, about specifically about self-harm, because I was finding that, and this is quite a normal default, but I was finding that actually we needed to make this a meaningful contact for young people, because they may not, or service users, they may not ever contact us again or get any other advice again. So how do we make it meaningful? So we've had people come in from our CAMS service and do training with the nurses, etc., so that we can make sure that if this is all the advice that they will access, that it has actually been worth their while, really.